It's that time again for another edition of the best wrestling show of the week. Oh, and I'm off the beat. Yeah. What's up, guys? It's Travis Fowler, Hark Rider, Four Corner Post, bringing you another edition of BWS Best Wrestling Show of the Week. This is going to be a fun episode, strictly because I don't think there was a whole lot of competition over who had the best show this week. I actually had it narrowed down to two. So, we're going to go right into the quick highlights. Over on Raw, we saw the whole Seth Rollins debacle where he came out and was still looking for his WrestleMania moment. That would lead to a main event matchup between him and AJ Styles, which we'll get to that in just a second. But we can't forget about the epic impersonation of Kevin Owens as Stone Cold Steve Austin. It got everybody. It even got me at first. When you saw him come out doing the walk, it was pretty funny. I also got to give it to him for doing the total fake out and doing the Stone Cold music while he was doing the promo. He also delivered a great promo to build up to the match, so thumbs up for Kevin Owens. And by the way, I don't know if this is going to be an actual match. I suspect that it will be in some form or fashion. It is supposed to main event night one of Mania, so that'll be interesting to see how that all transpires. Which, by the way, if people have a problem with Austin main eventing, or whether it's a segment or a match for Mania, maybe you aren't as over as you should be, that you should be the main event. Just a thought. Anyway, we also saw the Raw Tag Team title situation get a little bit more clarified with Alpha Academy, Street Profits, and RK Bro. Those teams are set to collide in a triple threat for the tag titles. Becky Lynch coming out and delivering, once again, a masterful promo in her build-up to Bianca Belair. This women's title match is so much more enjoyable going into Mania than what I believe the SmackDown women's title is, which I've made no secret about being bored to death by that storyline, but we'll get there in just a little bit. And then, of course, we saw Pat McAfee get involved with Austin Theory. They did that twice this week. And before I go any further, anybody else realize that the whole brand split and nobody's going to cross paths on Raw or SmackDown is total crap at this point? Because they always say Survivor Series is the one night a year. Well, at this point, I think we're at about, 4, 5, 6, something like that. But I digress. Overall, Raw was a really entertaining show, capped off by the main event of AJ Styles and Seth Rollins. It was a great main event. I enjoyed the matchup quite a bit. The disqualification by Edge coming out and hitting Styles with the chair was a perfect way to end the show. Of course, Rollins having his little fit. That was really the ending of the show. The Styles-Edge moment was the ending of the match. But it was still a good way to keep heat on Edge, to still secure that Styles-Edge match. And Rollins going off the rails is actually really cool. I think it'll either lead to one of two things. Cody Rhodes debuting on Raw this week, or he'll show up at Mania. I was actually hoping he'd show up this past week, strictly because Chicago, being a huge wrestling town, would have, I think, been the perfect spot for them to have him debut, especially because it's the, I guess we can call it, spiritual home of AEW. So if there was ever a time you wanted to take a jab, there it was. Speaking of AEW, Dynamite was a very tag-heavy show this week. Like, most of their matches that they advertised for were tag team matches. We'll start with the 8-man tornado tag match that basically ended up being an anything goes match for the most part. And of course, it had Jeff Hardy doing one of his spectacular dives from, I don't want to call it a ceiling because it wasn't, but it was like a little perch where the window was for the arena. It was a really cool spot, actually. I also really enjoyed the spot where the Butcher threw Darby Allin against the railing and down the steps. Darby is just so insane when it comes to some of the bumps that he wants to take. We saw a great singles match to start the show with Punk and Dax from FTR. Thought it was a great matchup to start the show. Wardlow and MJF continued their feud, as MJF is saying he ain't going to release him from his contract. I love this storyline between the two of them. I'm glad they're doing it. It's AEW Originals going head to head, and I think it's a great way to break Wardlow out into the singles star that he has a lot of potential of being. We saw the main event of the Jericho Appreciation Society, which I still am not thrilled on that name, nor do I think a lot of people are, but Daniel Garcia and Jericho picking up the win, and that ended the show, surprisingly. I would have thought that 8-Man Tornado should have been the main event, but I'm not the booker, so there you go. And then, of course, we also saw Adam Cole and Adam Page continue their rivalry. Adam Cole walking away with the AEW titles, just stealing the titles. So I don't know how I feel about that. I've never been a big fan of people just jacking the titles and holding them when they're not really the champion. It always, I thought, was weird, but it is what it is. Of course, we saw Thunder Rosa and her segment with Nyla Rose, which I thought they pushed an envelope pretty close to a line, if not crossing it. I actually kind of applaud them a little bit for doing something controversial. So AEW was a tag-heavy show, wasn't really up my alley this week, but it still was decent enough to continue with what they're doing. Over on Impact Wrestling, once again, if you haven't watched Impact in quite a while, do yourself a favor and tune in now. There is so much good stuff going on. Josh Alexander and Moose started off the show, which took place at the 2300 Arena, aka ECW's arena. And there's something about that crowd. It gave off a great vibe all night long when it came towards the show. The crowd was really into the characters and the stories. We also saw Honor No More continuing on their storyline. Eddie Edwards, of course, still feels slighted by Impact, and we'll see where things go there. They were also headlined by a tag team title match with the Good Brothers taking on Violent by Design in a lumberjack match for the tag titles that saw Honor No More's OGK get involved. I think this is going to set up some kind of multiple team matchup at Rebellion, but we'll see where that ends up going. Either way, Matt Taven came in and cost the Good Brothers their tag team titles. VVD still the champions there. We also saw the betrayal. And I called this happening, but I did not suspect that they were going to do it while Mickey wasn't the champion. I do think it's great how they got there, though, and this could also potentially bring about a new storyline that we see developing here really soon. Mickie James and Tasha Steelz were in a street fight to close out the show, which saw Chelsea Green come out, and she had been given instructions, do not help me out. If I need help, let me do it. Sure enough, that's exactly what Chelsea Green did. She sat down and just let Mickie handle her business. But of course, it wasn't because she didn't want to. It's because Chelsea Green knew that she was setting Mickie up all along. So this has now started the rivalry between Chelsea and Mickie, and it was capped off by Matt Cardona coming in and hitting radio silence on Mickie James to close out the show. Great stuff there. I have a very strong suspicious feeling that we're going to see Nick Aldis show up. Is he going to go by Nick Aldis? Maybe. He could go by his TNA or Impact Wrestling name he once went by, which was Magnus. There's a lot of good things going on in Impact, and I just think they are hitting all the right buttons when it comes to keeping me in and intrigued as a viewer. Over on SmackDown, we saw the return of King Woods. King Woods showed back up, and it's honestly something that I expected to happen anyway. Before we saw Big E get hurt, I figured they were going to lead up to some kind of six-man tag for Mania of the New Day versus this team of Rich Holland, Pete Dunne, now known as Butch, and Sheamus going against them for Mania. Of course, with Big E out, they may have to adjust that, or maybe they won't do anything at all. But it was nice to see Woods come back, and of course they picked up the win in their matchup. King Woods was successful in his singles match return. Then we, of course, had another promo battle between Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. Don't need to spend too much time on this. You all know how I feel about it. And we're just another week out from Mania. Still not any different than what I felt before. It was really strange also to see this Ricochet thing take place where he fought Los Lotharios, beat one, lost to the other. I don't know, are they going to add up to some kind of triple threat match? They announced the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal will be on their special edition of SmackDown / Hall of Fame next week. So I don't know. That's real confusing to me. Don't understand why he doesn't have a prominent Mania match. Same with Finn Balor over on Raw, by the way. But I digress. Of course, they continue the feud with Usos and Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. I still highly suspect that they're going to end up on the Mania card for the SmackDown tag titles. That'll probably be announced sometime this week. And then the main event segment for SmackDown this week showed Roman Reigns coming out. And of course, he was trying to bait and goad Brock Lesnar to say, if you want to come and fight me, I'll fight you here. Lesnar destroyed Roman's locker room all night long. And that led to Lesnar showing up through the crowd into the arena and then unleashing hell on all the security guards that were around with a steel chair. And of course, Roman scampered away. This has still been a great build-up, honestly. I love that this Mania has switched roles for Reigns and Lesnar. They needed to do something different since this is now the third time that this matchup specifically will main event Mania. It's only the second time ever that a match has main evented WrestleMania on 3 separate occasions. But we'll see if it ends up going the way that I predict it will be, which my predictions will come next week. But as for this week, who had the best wrestling show? Again, it was a toss-up, and I'll tell you now, it was between Impact Wrestling or Raw. I actually enjoyed Raw quite a bit this week, so it was really tough for me to decide, but I think I'm gonna have to give Raw their first win. It was again by a very slight margin, but Raw was very entertaining for what I saw this week. I think they did a great job building up to their matches. All of the matches are intriguing going into WrestleMania thus far. So Raw wins its first show of the year. Well, that does it for this week's edition of Best Wrestling Show. We will not be doing BWS next week since it is Mania week and there's going to be a lot of different shows going on. So we will be taking BWS on a hiatus next week, but look for some fun things to come about later on through the week because I'm going to be posting some interesting wrestling things. I will, of course, also be posting a predictions video for WrestleMania's Night 1 and 2. Also, shout out to my boy Zach and his boy Eric over on their podcast, All Things Trending. They gave us a shout out and we appreciate that so much, guys. And if you haven't, go check them out over on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. They're a great duo and a great show that they're just now starting to get up on their feet. So please go and check them out. Also, shout out to the Wrestling Soapbox for always sharing our stuff on Twitter. We greatly appreciate that. And you yourselves, thank you very much for every time you tune in and watch us. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our video channel. Also, make sure you like this video as always, and after you share that bad boy, make sure that your bell notification has been hit so that you're notified anytime we upload a video, especially this upcoming week. I'm Travis Fowler, Hark Rider, and I will see you guys just a little bit later.